Hello and welcome to this Food Safety Essentials webinar, your regular bite-sized update on food safety topics from our good friend Tony Connor at IFSQN. Today's topic is internal auditing. My name's Simon Timpley from the International Food Safety and Quality Network. Welcome along, everybody. We've got 1,706 people registered, so very popular. Say hello in the sidebar. Tell us where you're joining from. It's good to see you all. Okay, welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Simon. Hi, everyone. We'll kick off then. So, today we're going to talk about importance of internal audits in ensuring food safety. This is, in fact, our 6th Food Safety Essentials session. So, and each month we have a general food safety and question and answer webinar, which we start with a short presentation, which this month is obviously on internal audits. Previous Food Safety Essential webinar videos are available on the IFSQN website under the tab Webinars, so you can refer back to those. So far we've done what food safety recall data tells us, part 1 and 2, which was about allergen management and labeling and environmental pathogens, making positive use of complaints, most common SQF certification audit non-conformances, and looking at, last time we looked at new product development. So in previous session, we've looked at SQF non-conformances from certification audits. Critical and major internal audits and inspection non-conformances are found during SQF certification audits. The SQF top 5 major non-conformances in 2021 and 2022 included clause 2.5.4.1, which is a section on internal audits and inspections, which is mandatory. So 2 major, 2 critical there. And also in the SQF code 10, top 10 minor non-conformances in 2022. These statistics are on this topic on the website if you want to look into them in more detail. So let's look at the SQF Food Safety Code and 2.54 internal audits and inspections. The methods and responsibility for scheduling and conducting internal audits to verify the effectiveness of the SQF system shall be documented and implemented. We'll come on to this section a bit more detail in a bit. We've then got a requirement for staff conducting internal audits to be trained and competent in internal audit procedures, and where practical, staff conducting internal audits need to be independent of the function being audited. Regular inspections of the site and equipment need to be planned and carried out to verify good manufacturing practices and the facility and equipment maintenance are compliant with the SQF Food Safety Code. The site shall also take corrective and preventive action and maintain records of inspections and any corrective actions taken. We're going to look at inspections on the next webinar. There should also be records of internal audits and inspections and any corrective actions taken as a result of internal audits, and they should be recorded as per 2.5.3, which is corrective action and preventive action. Changes implemented from internal audits that have an impact on the site's ability to deliver safe food shall require a view of applicable aspects of the SQF system. Which refers to 2.3.1.3, which is a food safety plan shall be validated and verified by the site food safety team for each new product and its associated processes through conversion to commercial production and distribution, or a change to ingredients processing or packaging occurs that may impact on food safety. Okay. So internal audit should be conducted at planned intervals to determine whether the food safety quality management system conforms to the organization's policies, objectives and procedures, is effective in ensuring product compliance with customer, regulatory, statutory requirements, and obviously any relevant food safety requirements, food safety management system, and is effectively implemented, improved, or updated. So this is a food safety system process diagram. We plan and document our management system. We implement. We maintain, measure, and audit, review, and take actions to improve. So internal audits are an extremely useful site tool for monitoring and improving systems. Auditor knowledge and skills are important. The knowledge and skills required of auditors include audit principles, procedures and techniques, management system and reference documents, organizational situations, applicable laws, regulations and other requirements relevant, quality-related methods and techniques, food safety standards and requirements, products including services and operational processes. Internal audits shall be conducted in full and at least annually. The methods and responsibility for scheduling internal audits to verify the effectiveness of the SQF system needs to be documented and implemented. There needs to be a documented procedure for internal auditing. So audits should be conducted at least annually, and the methods should ensure all applicable requirements of the Food Safety Code are covered. It's good practice for internal audits to be scheduled based on the risk associated with a procedure or activity. Critical control points should be prioritized over operational prerequisite programs and preventive controls, and then prerequisite programs. Here's an example where measures for the prevention of product contamination in open product areas are prioritized. So for SQF, the requirements are to consider all the requirements of the SQF Food Safety Code as per an SQF audit checklist or similar tool. You can develop your own audit checklists if you prefer. You are required to record object evidence to verify compliance or non-compliance during the audits. So here's a record of the exact details of the documents checked. The date and title of documents that are expected should be noted in sufficient detail to allow them to be traced. The listing of records reviewed can also ensure a wide range of records are covered. Records can also confirm whether anything has changed since the last audit. So objective evidence can also be recorded on a food safety management audit form. Here we record and verify compliance and non-compliance. corrective and preventive actions of deficiencies identified during the internal audit should be undertaken. For example, here, this is a corrective action request form. Audit results need to be communicated to relevant management personnel and staff responsible for implementing and verifying corrective and preventive actions. Again, a food safety audit form can be used for this purpose. Internal audits are regarded as crucial to establishing an effective food safety management system, and these are included in GFSI benchmark requirements and are a mandatory, fundamental, or knockout requirement in food safety management system certification schemes. So if we mention some of the other schemes, BRCGS, Global Standard for Food Safety, internal audits are a fundamental requirement. The company needs to be able to demonstrate that it verifies the effective application of the food safety management system and the implementation of the requirements of the Global Standard for Food Safety and the site's food safety management system. There's a requirement for a scheduled program of internal audits, and for BRC, at a minimum, the program shall include at least 4 different audit dates spread throughout the year. The frequency at which each activity is audited needs to be established in relation to the risks associated with the activity and previous audit performance. All activities need to be covered at least once a year. Similarly, with the IFS food standard, where internal audits are a knockout, effective internal audit shall be conducted according to defined agreed audit program and cover at least all the requirements of the standard. The scope and frequency of internal audit shall be determined by hazard analysis and assessment of associated risks. For the FSSC 22000 scheme, we've got ISO 22000, where internal audits are covered in clause 9.2, internal audit. So, the internal audit program needs to include an audit schedule, so when audits will be conducted, the criteria, the area and requirements assessed, responsibility, who will conduct the audits, corrections and corrective actions, and communication to relevant staff. There also needs to be a review of the trace back system at some time during one of the internal audits. Audit results should be documented clearly showing what was audited. Reports need to show evidence of conformity as well as non-conformity. Normally, tick lists showing that items have been assessed are not acceptable as the only form of evidence. If anything is non-compliant, then the details of the non-compliance needs to be given and recorded. Information showing how the items audited have fulfilled the requirements or how they are non-compliant is required. Notes, references, or copies must be kept as evidence of aspects that have been examined to allow an independent reviewer to reach the same conclusion as the internal auditor. So, for an effective internal audit system, we need an internal audit procedure and schedule that adequately covers all the food safety management system elements. Given some history, the internal audit schedule will be based on risk associated with the procedure or activity, results of previous audits, any outstanding corrective actions. It could be from complaint analysis, preventive actions, or the results of management review. Sufficient resources need to be allocated to conduct internal audits as per the schedule. Staff conducting internal audits need to be adequately trained. Ideally, staff conducting internal audits need to be independent of the area being audited. Corrections and corrective actions of identified deficiencies need to be correctly allocated, followed up, and completed. Internal audit results need to be communicated to relevant management and staff. Internal audit reports and their follow-up need to be reviewed as a part of the management review process. Records need to be kept of internal audits and the corresponding corrective actions. For those that manage and want more information on internal audits, there are some guidelines for auditing management systems from ISO, the ISO 19011. I wouldn't buy it now. It's been expected to be replaced in the coming months, so there will be a new version of it available. So we'll move on to questions and answers. Any questions?
Yeah, they sure are. So, question from Sharon. If an internal auditor is trained in internal audit for FSSC 22000, will that person still need to get specific training for, say, SQF internal auditing?
Obviously, there's different specific requirements for FSSC 22000 because that's got a unique way of doing a hazard analysis where you have a hazard control plan and you have critical control points or operational pre-RPs, prerequisite programs. And for SQF, it doesn't require that. It requires a food safety plan specifically as per Codex guidelines. And so what I would say is that person needs to have training in the SQF food safety code, but their auditing technique should be satisfactory as an internal auditor. My only concern would be their knowledge in terms of how much of the SQF code requirements do they understand.
Okay, makes sense. Question from Atil. In terms of ISO 19011 as a guideline for auditing, certification body auditors are asked for updated internal audit training with respect to the updated guideline. What do you recommend for it if we know how to conduct audit? And since ISO 19011 is for auditors of CB, suppliers and internal auditors.
I don't think there's a draft published so far, so the new version hasn't been published. Certification body auditors perhaps should be updated with it, but there is also their own standard for certification audits. I think as there are guidelines, then internal auditors, site internal auditors, don't really need to. It might be, some of the information might be useful, but I think it's better for people or more geared for people that are actually managing. So an audit team leader, and that would be normally somebody that was somebody that completed a 5-day audit team leader course.
Yeah. Just before we carry on, just a note to everybody. There's the main chat and then there's the Q&A. So if you're asking a question, please mark it as a question. Otherwise, we won't answer it if it's just in the main chat. Please help us to help you. Question from Azra. What risk assessment for internal audit do we need to include?
Okay. So when you're doing internal audits, you look at your whole food safety management system and you assess the risk, the severity of a failure of an item. So if you've got a critical control point and hazard-related items in your system, if your critical control point fails, that can result in something pretty severe. And So when you look at your assessment, you need to look at the likelihood of something failing and the severity of the repercussions of that, and then prioritize your audits based on that. So you might be satisfied with some of your management procedures that have been established, but decide that the HACCP related items, like critical control points, are prioritized in your audit. And in that presentation, I mentioned some areas where you might want to audit more frequently. That's like product contamination control in open product areas, which can be covered by internal audits and some by inspections. And by product contamination control, I mean glass control, so glass breakage procedures, glass registered, wood control, stationary control, that sort of thing, metal control.
Okay. Thanks. Question from Israel. We are a catering venue company. Our facility manager and chief engineer cancelled the third-party company for the maintenance and cleaning of kitchen hoods and exhaust. They said that it can be done internally. Is this possible? Is it applicable? Shall it be considered not compliant or non-conformance if ever we are checked by legal government bodies, or if whenever we renew our certification?
Okay. Well, this is obviously cleaning, maintenance and cleaning. So it's a case of whether you've got the people that are sufficiently trained in-house to carry out maintenance and cleaning. And also you could probably use your chemical supplier to provide training, cleaning procedures and training for people doing cleaning. It's not necessarily a non-compliance unless you haven't got people that are capable of maintaining and cleaning your equipment.
Okay. Question from Mahmood. As an auditor, should I write all the objective evidence for all conforming and non-conforming points?
Well, I think you need to record. I mean, you don't want to write a book when you're doing an audit. It needs to be precise. So you need to include objective evidence for conformance, and also non-conformance. So I think you need to pick out key items, the main items that you've covered during the audit. So it's a case of when you do your audit checklist, you decide what you're prioritizing in the area and look to focus on that. And then if everything's okay, you can, and you're not finding any non-conformities, then you can delve down deeper.
Okay, great. Question from Asma. I'm currently working in QA and we're in the process of preparing for BRC certification at our facility. The session moved a bit fast for me, so I was wondering if you could kindly yes. Yes, we always share the recording and slides afterwards, Asma. So don't worry about that. Question from Jeffrey. When the standards talk about internal audit program, what is the evidence of implementation?
Okay, so when you're doing, as I mentioned before, the internal audit program has a procedure. It has trained audits. You have an audit schedule, and then you have audit. You might have audit checklists. You have audit reports. You have corrective actions recorded on the audit reports or on a corrective action form, as I've shown you, and you have follow up on all those items. So that all those documents are evidence of your implementation of your program.
Okay, question from Jose. Is there an audit app you recommend? Any particular app or anything? Or are you old school?
Old school, so no.
Okay. Question from Chet. Does the SQF internal audit checklist need to be done by the SQF practitioner together with a consultant, or can it be done just by the practitioner?
It can be done by anyone that's trained to be an internal auditor.
Okay. Next one, question from Divina. What would be an acceptable timeline to close findings if it's minor, major, or critical? Your response can be based on industry practice.
Yeah, well, if you've got something critical, timeline is like immediate. It's obviously could be a food safety. It might be if you've got a critical non-compliance. It could be a case that you need to shut the line down. A major might be slightly less serious, but you're talking days, and then minors tend to be like weeks or months. Now, it might be some things might be structure related, so it might be a case of you needing to fund. Get capital raised to actually fund the corrective action, in which case you need to still document the process and show that you put the corrective action forward and are processing it and put in orders to get items fixed.
Okay.
Sorry, just to mention the last question on check, I think he said the internal audit checklists, the internal audit checklists, they can be developed probably better to be developed by the practitioner, but if the auditors are competent, then that's fine as well.
Okay, got you. Question from Leoneef: should the auditor to conduct the training be certified?
Yeah, well, both the trainer and let's start off with internal auditors need to be trained. The audit team leader needs to be trained, and that's usually a longer course for a team leader, obviously. And then any trainers should have a training qualification as well.
Okay. Question from Grace. If we have a limited management staff, can an independent auditor be a minimally trained production member who is from another area and we walk through the audit together as training? Yes,
I mean, as long as the auditors are independent and they're trained satisfactorily, they can come from any department. But what they do need is do need to understand the product, the process, the operation, and the operations that are going on. So the auditors do need to have some knowledge, but they can come from any department.
Okay. How do you set internal audit frequency? That's from Rohith.
Yeah, we've discussed that. It's based on risk associated with the activity. So high risk activities are audited the most frequently, and then lower risk activities such as management review, if you like, less frequently, because it's more likely that there's less influence on food safety than the high risk ones, which are related to CCPs, critical control points that are controlling your product, or things like metal detection, which are controlling the safety of your finished products before they go out to the customer.
Okay. I don't understand that one. Nope. Okay, question from Katie. For the internal auditors, is there a retraining, recertification period that you would recommend? We are SQF certified, but there's not a clear standard within the code as to how often we should be recertified. Is there any industry standard for internal auditing recertification?
No, I don't think there is not a specific industry standard, but what there is a requirement to review training competency on a regular basis. So I think if you've got internal auditors, and after a couple of years, you need to certainly be checking up on their competency, maybe doing shadow audits with them to see that they're auditing as you wish and how they are trained, and follow up with refresher training if you're not happy with that.
Okay, question from Vishal. Now, according to BRCGS, internal audit dates must be spread over 4 different days in a year. Is it acceptable to schedule them across 4 days within the same week? Is it okay to have one audit of 4 days in a year?
Right. Well, what it does say, the standard says 4 days, but it says spread throughout the year. So the implication of that is it's sort of every quarter there are some audits, and that's what I would follow. I think that's what is good practice. So doing 4 audits in 1 week only covers 1 week out of 52, whereas covering audits 4 times a year by doing it every quarter, then you're spreading your audits out and having a fairer assessment of your food safety management system.
Yeah, makes sense. Question from Terry. I did the SQF checklist for our internal audit and was given a minor non-conformance for citing the evidence for the conforming items in our internal audit. I know the items exist and that they are correct. Why do I need to prove to myself, the SQF practitioner, that my audit items were conforming?
Hi, Terry. Well, the main requirement, I don't know all the circumstances of your non-conformance, but I showed you the one of the documents which you can refer back to, and it recorded the document that had been looked at and what was conforming. So what we were checking against. So was the procedure compliant with relevant legislation, and a record of the procedure was checked, its issue number, the date of issue, and who and the details of the compliance. So that's what I'd record, and I don't know why you'd get a non-compliance for that. So maybe I haven't quite understood your question.
Okay. Can you just reiterate for a major non-conformity found during an internal audit, what would be the process?
Right. Well, I would raise a formal correct non-compliance notification and a corrective action request form requesting immediate action. So with that, I'd want to have a meeting and discuss immediately with the department manager what was wrong, what the cause was, and what corrective action, any corrections, and what corrective action or preventive action needed to be taken to fix it or prevent the major non-conformance in the future.
Okay. Kathy's comments: internal auditor training is not defined. What details do auditors look for as appropriate evidence?
Normally you develop your own checklist, but the SQF provide a checklist which you're able to use. Where other standards, you look at the standard or your own food safety management procedures, and from your procedures, take your procedures and develop sets of questions. So what procedures you need to look at, what are the corresponding records, where do I need to go, what operation do I need to look at, who do I need to interview, that type of thing.
Okay. Must an internal auditor be trained on BRC and IFS if already trained as a QMS lead auditor? Is it absolutely necessary? Could that be an issue?
If you're already trained as a QMS lead auditor, that is great, 90% of the job done. The only question then is, what are your knowledge and competencies in terms of the BRC, relevant BRC standard? So it could be for food manufacturers, it's global standard for food safety, or IFS food, or it could be packaging or whatever. So you need to be knowledgeable. You're fine in terms of an internal auditor, but you need to have the right knowledge of those standards.
Okay. Israel, is there any standard waiver format or form available when our company wants to declare a metric or criteria to be excluded in an audit, or if a criteria metric cannot be achieved?
Well, I'm not sure whether this is on about certification audits or internal audits. Internal audits should be covering what you do. Now, there might be things that you don't do that are included in a certification standard, and in that case, you can discuss it with your certification body and get an agreement on whether something is excluded from your certification audit. But internal audit should cover your whole food safety management system. There shouldn't be any exclusions.
Right. Hang on a second. Question from Akil. Can all SQF codes be audited by a single person practitioner in a small company?
Yeah, it's not ideal, and it's better if you can train up some other auditors or another one or two. But yes, it is, and with small organisations, I think certification bodies are certainly a bit more understanding that you've got limited resources available to you.
Okay. What are the advantages of SQF, and how can someone get certified?
Well, the advantages of SQF or any other food safety certification scheme is that you tend to get less customer audits. You tend to get, once you're certified, you tend to get acceptance that your food safety system, management system is effective and approved for supplier, it's much easier to become an approved supplier for major companies or food organizations. So it's much easier to be approved as a supplier. In fact, a lot of organizations are approved on being certified to SQF as a supplier.
Okay. Question from RISPA. What is the impact of having recurring similar findings during a repetitive sectional audit? What's the best way to handle?
Right. Well, what I think you do is this is a situation where you're raising non-compliances, you're raising requesting corrections and corrective actions, and they're not being carried out. And when this sort of situation occurs, you need to escalate it. And you need to say, well, if it's a minor and it keeps repeating, then you need to escalate it to a major and highlight it to the audit manager and to senior management as an issue. But certainly take it up to the next level if you're getting repetitive failures of the same thing.
Okay. Question from Bernard. A lot of internal audits are done by external consultants. It seems for some CBs, not to be a problem. That's more of a comment. Terry's gone on to say, yes, what happened was I marked the items as compliant, but didn't cite the evidence as to why they were compliant. But right. Why do I need to cite my own program? I know they are compliant.
Well, you need to, what I said when we were going through that is that when you record the results of your internal audit and document it, you need to document it in sufficient detail. Another auditor can go look at the same area and come to the same conclusion as you. So you might know your system's working, but it needs to be documented so you've got proof, and that you need the proof in sufficient detail that another auditor could follow up and confirm your findings.
Okay. Vishal is asking, is it okay to have internal audit audited by a single? Right. Same question, we've answered that one. Question by Ryan. Is there any guidance or limitations on conducting desk audits as part of the internal audit program, specifically for SQF?
I think there is guidance in the standard I mentioned, ISO 19011, The limitations are you're just looking at paperwork. So you can do that before an internal audit anyway, and then check that so you can look at the procedure and the blank records as a desk audit, and some completed records. But and then when you go and look at the area and observe, you need to check that they've got that procedure that they should have. And when you look at the completed records, they've got the right version of the records, and that they're being completed correctly, and there's no issues or faults with what's being recorded. So there's no problem with doing some part of the desk audit, but at some stage you've got to go and physically look in the plant when you're auditing some things. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody that's posted a question in the general chat, just please repost it in the Q&A, or we're not going to answer it. Question from L.O. Asikibi. I think you've covered this, but again, what points should we consider in the risk assessment to determine the required frequencies for the internal audit throughout the season activity?
Yeah, the risk assessment is to determine which areas are highest risk in your food safety management system, and most of these tend to be operational areas in the facility where critical control points are controlled by control measures, and looking at those. Prevention of product contamination, so procedures like metal detection, glass control, etc. Now, the seasonality can come into it with sort of like some hazards, or where your production levels vary, but that might be more important for inspections rather than internal audits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question from
the risk is also based on giving some history on previous audit results, any outstanding corrective actions, and any findings from the management review, which looks at internal audit trends.
Okay. Israel, we've already answered that question, so we're not going to answer it again. Rosina, what is the difference between audit plan and program, and which one comes first? Could they be included in the procedure at once?
Okay, well, an audit plan, some people might call an audit plan or schedule. I think where I showed you in one of the documents in the presentation, where you've got all the items listed that you need to audit, all the elements of your food safety management system, and you risk assess them, and you plan when you're going to do them by month throughout the year. Right, the program is the whole thing together. So that's starting with a procedure, a schedule, trained auditors, checklists, forms, internal audit report forms, corrective action request forms, etc.
Okay. Bless you, you need to be more clear with your question if you want to get it answered. Question from Rosina. What type of training is relevant for one to offer internal audit trainings?
Well, we're going to come on to it at the end. We offer internal audit training, which meets the GFSI requirements for GFSI benchmark standards. Typically, it's a training course supplied by a qualified trainer that you can show evidence of that they're competent, that you have copies of the training material, and that there's an assessment to ensure that the training is effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question from Akil. How can we differentiate inspections from internal audits?
Yeah, well, I'm going to come on to that inspections next month, but basically inspections look at building and hygiene, building and fabric hygiene and condition, and basically good hygienic practices and prerequisite programs and we'll talk more about that next month.
Okay, very good. Doreen, it's not auditing. Say, can a system have CCP with no OPRP?
Yes, it can. I mean, with FSSC 22000, it goes on ISO 22000 requirements for decision making on control measures, and you decide whether control measures are CCPs or OPRPs. Usually based on how easy it is to monitor them. And yes, it's quite possible to have a hazard control plan with CCPs, but no OPRPs. But what there will be is PRPs, prerequisite programs that still need verification.
Right. Okay. Don't think there's any more questions. Do you want to go through a couple of the things? If anybody has a question, please post it in the Q&A tab. Mark it as a question. Put it in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, we offer GFSI implementation packages for GFSI benchmark standards and certification schemes. So SQF, BRC, FSSC 22000. The SQF ones are the most popular. Packages include Food Safety Management System procedures. They're in Microsoft Word US English format. There are good manufacturing practice template procedures or prerequisite programs. And these are again editable in Microsoft Word format. There's record templates included, and then there's a range of implementation assistance included with them, including startup guides, implementation workbooks, instructions, PowerPoint training presentation, and guidance and technical support until you achieve certification. So we've got an offer on that. Have they got the offer live, Simon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an offer in the tab there. There's a code there for a 15% discount. As well as that, we're going to mention that next Friday on the 6th of June, we are doing a 4-hour practical internal audit training session. It's only $97 per person. And so I think it's great value for that. If you look on the website and look at the link, follow the link from the PDF, you'll see it's got great reviews and it's great value for money.
Yeah. So obviously this is just a light overview, some Q&A. Obviously 4 hours you can get into much more detail about.
Yeah, there's a nice auditor training exercise, and at the end of the training there's an exam where you will answer some questions, and if you pass that you'll get an IFS QN Academy certificate. And like I say, this training is suitable for internal audits on sites as per the requirements of GFSI benchmark standards, so the likes of SQF, BRC, FSSC 22000, IFS, but not suitable for an audit team leader, which normally should be doing a 5-day course.
Yeah, just one thing to note on that. If you put it back to the internal audit, yes. So the day for internal audit is training is Friday, June the 6th, which is a week on Friday. Yeah. If you can't attend that date, so if you do attend and when you go through checkout, you can choose to purchase the next live training. But as well as being able to attend the live training afterwards, you will receive the recording and links to the exam, etc. And you'll have 30 days to access that recording. So don't just think that it's that day and you can't make it. you've got 30 days access to the live and then the recording after, including the exam and certificate. Okay, so no reason not to sign up and sign your team, whether it's like your first audit training or it's a refresher for your team, etc. It's always helpful. Okay, so there are some questions now. The time for the training is 2 p.m. UK time, so that's actually 6 a.m. Pacific, and then it's 9 a.m. Eastern time. So it's basically 2 p.m. in the UK and whatever your time zone is. But like I say, if you can't make that, 6 a.m. is early for the west coast of the USA, so you do have access to the recording. Okay, there are some questions now, Tony.
Okay.
So question from Amy. How does internal audit program connect with verification program? Can the audit be used to show verification of the programs, or is there additional info needed?
Yeah, internal audit, sure, Amy, that internal audit, you don't want to duplicate things. So yeah, internal audits can be used as part of your verification program to provide evidence that things are working, procedures, prerequisite programs, etc. But your verification program might need, include other aspects for, I don't know, calibration, product sampling, test results, etc. But yes, by all means, it can be used together.
Okay, Dunham, we have a very sophisticated schedule in place and a first-class auditor and a number of trained auditors on site. We raise very few NCs through the year. Is this okay?
It sounds great, but is everything perfect with your food safety management system? Are you getting product non-compliances? Are you getting customer complaints? You know, if there's no evidence to suggest that that otherwise, then it sounds good. But obviously, you should be looking at your whole system performance and key quality and food safety KPIs, and ensuring that your products are all absolutely hunky-dory as your internal audit system is suggesting.
Okay. Mac, maybe can you just reiterate what's the acceptable period from audit to the correction?
Yeah, well, the acceptable period, it's dependent entirely on the risk and the severity of the non-conformance. So if it's critical, it needs to be corrected straight away. Major is typically as soon as possible, which I would say is days, you know, and then minor maybe weeks. But yeah, if something's critical, it's a food safety or legality issue typically.
Okay, and a question from Prodip. Could I audit in my plant by the area separately, or should I audit the whole area at a time?
I think it's better to break up your audits, and even with something like the SQF audit checklist, a lot of people will take that and they will split it into sections and go and not rather it is one checklist, but split it into sections so that you split your audits through your time, because I think you can't go through a whole checklist in one session unless you're very, very good and do it effectively. I think it's better to split it up.
Okay. Eva's asked, can you post the discount again for the package? So I'll re-put that in the sidebar. So yeah, by the way, we'll be following up today with an email to everybody that's registered with the recording of this, copy of the slides, but we will include in that the upcoming next week's internal audit training and also the package offer with the codes that you need and the links, etc. So if you want to follow up on that. Okay. Kasim's asking, can we see a copy of the checklist for SQF?
Yeah, it's on the SQF website. I'll go back for you, though. It'll take a few seconds. It's on the SQF website. If you type in Google SQF checklist, and it'll be... yeah.
Okay, nice.
I'll just go back. Yeah, I'll show you it just a sec.
Okay.
There it is. So, search food SQF food manufacturing checklist edition 9 on Google, and yeah, I'm sure you'll find that.
Okay, right. There's a new feature in this webinar platform where people can speak, but maybe we'll use that in the future.
All right.
Might add a new dimension to it. Interesting to make it a bit more engaging rather than me just reading the questions out. Okay. Yeah. I think that's it, Tony. So.
Okay. Totally good. It's been a good session. Yeah, it's always better when we've got people coming on with plenty of questions. It keeps us busy.
Keeps you busy, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have to think, and I can barely do my job. But 1,700 registered, 350 live. Not bad for a Wednesday in May. So
good.
Yes, thanks everybody for attending. Just expect an email popping into your inbox with, as we discussed, the recording, slides, and the info for the training and the documentation packages. So, yeah, thank you, and hope to see you on the next one in a month, next Food Safety Essentials. Thanks very much, Tony, for your time today and sharing your knowledge.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everybody. Night-night.
Okay, have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Cheers.